So we're going to move on to the next bit. Okay, so God has his foundation stones, which are primary for entering into the universe, into creating the universe. Okay, but then God has his and her character. God has this types of love, and which I call the five primary expressions of God's love. And these are built into the universe. We see them everywhere, these five. Once you start to realize, oh, there are five primary types of God's love, and I see them everywhere, and you start to understand how God has, how one say, manifest his being, God's being, into the creation and into our own lives. And so the principle says that God is a God of love, but it's not that simple. It says he has different forms of love, and we need different types of love for all systems to be healthy. So we see these different kinds of love. We see nurturing, what we call nurturing parent, a protective parent, sensible adult, team player child, and free and creative child. So let's explore this, because once you understand God's nature, then you understand, oh, this is what I have to manifest in my marriage to keep my marriage healthy, to keep my marriage healthy, and because I have to. That's how God comes down. This is how God comes down. So we see this in the Genesis story. Okay, so in the Genesis story, we see five primary expressions of God's love. Okay, so the first thing we see, the free and creative child, the creative child of God, and he's creating the universe. He's out there, flowers, give me about smells and colors and tastes, and let's have some nice animals and dinosaurs and all these things, and all that, let's have this and let's have that, and he's incredibly creative, and how can that work with this, and that seems good, and that seems a nice mix, like a recipe, and he's incredibly creative. So we see this 6 days of creation. But it's not only that. God is a team player. He's doing it not for himself, but he's doing it for the sake of others. He wants to create children. He wants to build a covenantal relationship with us and build this, give and take action with us, which will bring him joy, God's joy, and us joy. And that's a team player part of God's heart. When God is also rational, he's a scientist. He needs to develop all the biological and chemical and physical and scientific mathematical things which will actually build a constructed universe that works. And if you look at the laws of nature, if they were 1% either way, some of these laws, the whole universe will fall to pieces. They have to be exactly right for the whole thing to hold together. And, national. The next, he's a protective parent. He says to Adam and Eve, please, I really advise you not to eat that apple. Don't eat that apple. It's going to hurt you if you do that now. And so please don't do it. So we see this protective heart of God. And we also see the nurturing heart of God. He gives humankind 3 blessings. He says, I want to help you grow so that you manifest my love. I'm going to be there for you. And I'm giving you 3 blessings if we can work together on this. So we see these types of love within the Genesis story, and they're foundational because this is the inner world of God's love. This is how God is. We can only say that because we can see that in nature. We'll explain in a minute. So where do we see this in first the human realm? Well, let's look at a very simple example. When my wife had a kindergarten, and we're there to try and help the children grow up. That's part of the job. We're there with us for 4 or 5 years. It was a wonderful experience watching them grow, So one of the first things we wanted to understand, see in them, is the ability to be a creative child and a free child. In other words, to recognize that they're an individual with their own needs, but also with their own unique creativity, and be able to manifest that. So we were so happy when they could build constructive things, draw nice drawings, make nice crafts, and manifest their own goodness. And also they could express their own unique needs, like I need to go to the toilet, I'm hurting, and These kind of things are all part, and we were very proud of the children as they grew to learn these things. And we said, this is a healthy child, healthy part of the child. Okay, and when the child was being destructive, we just said, we didn't know why, or, they just didn't know how to express their needs and properly, or we knew that was dysfunctional. Okay. So the next thing we were hoping, not just have individualists, but they could also work in the team. They went out, they dressed them, they went out came to lunch together. They played nicely together. They sang nicely together. They played in the playground nicely together. They learned the rules of different forms of spaces. Like there's rules in the kitchen, in the dining room. There's rules in the playground. There's rules in sports. There's etc. And they had to navigate to learn the different elements of that. And when they could do that, they could be a good team player and congratulate each other and well done and these kind of qualities. Then we could say, oh, this is really good. And of course, when they didn't want to be, they just wanted to be rebellious and not be part of the team and not sit at the table or throw their food around or whatever. We knew that something needed to change, that wasn't going to help them in life. So then we were hoping, of course, over time that they become more adult. They started to learn to dress themselves. The first thing was teach them the potty, some of them, the potty, so they look after that and then dress themselves with the next thing and then wear the right clothes and come on time and all these things that as a child grows, just to be sensible about how they approach life and so they don't keep falling off the edge and hurting themselves and things like this. Okay, so we were hoping, and when we saw that, we said, oh, this is goodness, this is good. And if and that was God can help them, God can bless them. We also of course saw the children, many of the girls had dolls or dogs they petted or things like this. They wanted to raise something up. They wanted to dress them nicely, and many of them looked after the younger children and tried to encourage them and teach them things and dance with them. And we saw this very natural process that even in the young 4 or 5-year-olds, that they wanted to express this. And when we saw this happening, especially them trying to nurture the younger ones, we knew that was goodness. We knew that was beautiful. And we honored that, and that was really valuable. And lastly, when a child, they had to protect themselves. They had to learn to say no, you can't, no to themselves and no to other children. I'm sorry, you can't do that. That's not healthy behavior. They had to abstain from doing certain things which hurt other children, they had to learn how to navigate that world because it can be very hurtful. They had to learn to be honest and set boundaries and things like this. So when we saw these things, we said, this is good. Like God said, he created the universe and said, this is good. This is good. God can bless this person. If they carry on doing this, they will live a good and happy life. And we were always helping to find these development of these 5 types of love. And it really helped us with the child development because it gave us a focus to understand, where a child needed help and support. So, of course, I grew up from a kindergarten, but some things are weak. And so when my marriage started, I was kind of very creative. I'm kind of free and creative. I was a little bit rebellious sometimes and wild. But sometimes I was sensible and reasonably sensible. And I had a reasonably strong, nurturing parent. I was happy to help other people. And I loved ultimately becoming an educator and these kind of things. Yeah. So this is what my strength I brought to my marriage. But I was missing protectiveness, and I wasn't at the start wasn't terribly good team player. When my wife joined me, we were in America and at the seminary, and she was always running around trying to find me because I would kind of, I wouldn't always think I was so involved in what I was doing. I wouldn't think so much about her sometimes. She said, you've got to do better here. And when she married me, she was more like this. She was an incredibly strong team player. She had quite a bit of sense to her, and she was she understood things that would hurt herself and other people, and she was much clearer there. But of course, this isn't ideal. I wanted more playfulness from her and creativity. I wanted it desperately sometimes. And I would like her to be more nurturing. And she also liked me to be more protective and more of a team player. In other words, she understood that something was missing from my inner world, my core competences. And she has been pushing me to develop these things over the years, or marriage itself, because when you don't have protectiveness and it will hit you in the face. Something will go wrong, and you have to battle it, go through that, and say, I've got to do better next time, and so that we don't go through the same problem again. So over time, she's developed a lot more creativity and playfulness, and I really appreciate that. And I've become a better team player, and I'm still, sometimes struggling with my protective parent. But this is wonderful language to use because it gave us a language to talk about what we needed from each other. We had a language to talk and say, I need more nurturing from you. And what does that mean? I need more protecting from you. What does that mean? And we give us a language to talk about the development we hope to see in each other over the years. It wasn't just a vague statement, It was like putting it into a proper context, a model that we could say, okay, this works for us. This is true for us. And this probably is true for the universe too. So if you watch anything like Super Nanny, I don't know if anybody watched the program Super Nanny, where a woman goes into a home and with a dysfunctional home with parents who don't know what to do. And she's trying to get them into this system. She's trying to teach them how to discipline properly, how to nurture properly, how to run the family in a sensible daily schedule, how to help the children find time to play and creative, and how to help the children work together with the parents as a team. And she's trying to get them into this box because this is how God dwells. This is how it comes down. And when you realize this, then you start to realize every single system on earth needs these 5 types of love to be healthy. And you start to understand how God's love is embedded into the universe, which is why Christianity was so powerful, because it said the natural order of the universe is the parent-child relationship. It's the father-son relationship. This is the primary access for understanding how reality works. And it's not a matter of power, because as True Father said, we have, God has power. He doesn't need that. He wants love to be manifested, and therefore, this is the fundamental power of the universe. We might say the fundamental force that drives the universe, these kind of love. So I can look at any system and I can say, oh, it needs these 5 textures of God, 5 expressions of God's love. I can look at my garden, for example, and I've got to give it fertilizer, some nurturing, I need to protect it from slugs. Last night I was out trying to get some slugs who were eating my new plants. I have to be sensible about where I plant and the watering, and I have to be sensible about these things at what time of year. I have to work with the kind of soil, the sun, and all kinds of things. I have to team player with them. It's not me alone working on this. And of course, I want a creative garden with colors and contrasts and features. And this makes it happy. And if I don't protect it, the slugs will eat a lot of it. If I don't fertilize it, my plants will look limp. Some of them will look limp. And if I don't water, they die. Or, if I don't plant the right plants in the right place, they won't live. And if without the colors, it won't be the garden I hope to have. So if something's missing, then it's not going to work. And you can apply this to a company, or you can apply this to our democracies. And how does God come down into democracy is through these 5, the channeling of these 5 expressions of love. So we have education systems for nurturing, we have police and doctors and firemen for protection, and we have sensible water and town planning, and we have community orgs like churches and charities and other things, and we need to have fun in life and art and play and dance and sing, and all these things are essential. And if you take away the firemen or the doctors or the education or the sensible town planning or the community orgs or then it just doesn't work. And it's everywhere. This same paradigm is you can apply to any situation from your bedroom through to building a house. It doesn't matter. We need these 5 texts of God's love so that things maintain health. And once you understand that, that's maybe why my marriage isn't working properly. I'm not being a strong enough team player, or we're not planning properly together. We're not nurturing each other enough, etc. So where does this fit in the principle of creation? You say, well, I haven't seen this in the principle of creation. Well, here it's here. It just fits in here. It fits in here because all the 5 expressions have a masculine and feminine expression. It's I want to say, you take those expressions, so this is male or masculine, God's masculinity, and you can expand it out and say God has a masculine nurturing part and a protective masculine part and a sensible a male team player part and a male creative part, and femininity has its own expressions of these things. So, women dress differently than men, for example. Yeah, well, they do makeup and dresses and shoes are completely different than men do. It's a completely different form of creativity, and you can say more men go into mechanics and things like this, and more women go into other forms of creativity like dance. And so we have different forms of masculine and feminine creativity, and within marriage, fathers will offer different kinds of creativity, and mother will offer different to the children. And so this is where it comes. So we expand out the principle, and we say, oh, this is how God comes down. This is the inner nature of God and God's character. So we can see how this works because we talk about the 4 realms of heart. That's our job, to move from a child to a parent, to move, but you can't forget the child as you move to the parent. The child is a foundational aspect of becoming ultimately a good parent, because you've got to keep your playfulness and your ability to learn to work together in a team. And as you move up to the couple and parental love, those are foundation stones for everything else. You can't just say, oh, I have parental love without child's love and brother and sister love. And so this is how it works out in real life. So in summary, the 5 expressions of God's love are embedded into the substructure of the universe, which is why Christianity is so important to the world. To lose Christianity would to lose this parental child understanding of how the universe works, would be an absolute devastation for humanity. We would go back into power politics again, and that wouldn't help us at all. The essence of God's love is all around. It should be inside us too. And part of marriage education is about helping us to learn how to channel these different types of love so we become closer to being God's children. Okay? So we can look at these things and, what is it, free child in marriage? How does it work? And how can marriage educators, how do they tackle some? They all talk about different aspects of these things, but within a free child, you want a free to be honest, a free to say sorry, free to express my needs. Can I have the power to create moments of enjoyment and playfulness? Do I have the ability to create a nice looking home? Can I express affection? Am I free to be romantic? These kind of, can I do these things? What does it mean for me to be able to do these things? Why can't I do them? And how do I get there? And then there's a team player in marriage, like work together as a team. Can I fulfill the requests of my spouse? Can I be loyal with my words? Can I offer words of admiration when I talk about my wife? Can I keep my promises? Do I do my fair share? Can I offer words of empathy? Can I be a good team player? There's all kinds of dimensions there. But so, people talk about different aspects of these things. And of course, the adult in marriage, the value of planning together. There's a lot of marriage education, you need a time each week, sit down and plan together. Can I listen to my partner's viewpoint? Can we have listening skills in marriage education? Can I compromise? I know how to create a clean home and a sensible home and sensibly run home and cooking schedule and planning and everything else and all these things. And some people are weak at these things and some people are stronger. But God comes down the more we can achieve these things. And then nurturing is the ability to be able to say to yourself, I can grow, and also I can grow. I can help my partner grow. I'm willing to invest in that. So can I offer praise? Do I regularly do that when my partner is getting things right and encourage them along their path of growth? Can I listen to my partner's dreams and hopes and kind of be with them and help them? Can I role model that which I would like my partner to develop? That's one part of nurturing. And have I established behaviors that will allow me to grow as a partner? Like, am I nurturing myself? Am I reading, studying about marriage and things like this? So all these things are part of nurturing and protective parent. Do I have methods? Do we have established a non-violent, shouting method of solving conflicts? Have you learned to ask for change respectfully? We learn about I statements and how do you approach a topic using I, therefore not triggering a negative response. How are my listening skills? Can I listen to their worries and fears and problems and regularly do that so they don't build up? Do I know how to use the word structure to set boundaries? And can I step up when my partner needs support and help? So all these kind of things are there to protect the family unit, and marriage education focuses on some, people do different topics there. So here we have an inner working of God. This is like an inner working. God has these three fundamental states of being, core values, inner well-being, level of empowerment. And then on top of that, God manifests these 5 textures of God's love from the character of God into the universe. And we see it everywhere. When you start to understand these textures, you will see them everywhere. And you thought, I said to myself at one point, I don't need faith in God because the 5 textures of God's love are holding the universe together. It's holding my house together. It's holding my marriage together. This love is so present everywhere that it would be silly to deny that there's some force behind this how can one say this way of being, you have to deny the universe itself and what's right in front of your eyes. It's not a matter of belief in God. It's just seeing God is present everywhere. God is like this. This is like, you might say, God pre-creation. Section 1 and 2 of the divine principle. This is God, mind, body, unity, and dual characteristics of love. So then God has to enter into creation. So then as a marriage partner, I take these qualities and then I enter into a relationship with my wife. And that's third section. But before we do that, we will say hello again. Does that make sense?
Those 5 slides where you flesh out the 5 textures of God's love are so dense that you could just spend a whole session on just those.
Of course.
Yeah, so there's a lot there.
Yeah, I mean, this course, which I'm teaching you today, was a 36-hour at university, and I'm doing it in 2.5 hours here. So we would look at the research, and we would look at all the people who talked about different things, and there are people talking about all these different functions. Yeah. So Betty, do you see some of these things in your marriage? Where are you strong? What are you? Where are you strong?
Oh my gosh, I did my own little reflection of I mean, I think definitely I wish I could say I was sensible, but actually my husband's more sensible. I think I'm definitely more creative, nurturing. I think he's more protective. I, yeah, both of us have had actually weakness in team player, strangely enough.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's really a nice framework to look at and a really nice language. Um, yeah, and it's really interesting because I had this idea when I was thinking about my goals. I thought I really want to become a better team, and I was really praying for it. And then somehow we had more things that allowed us to become a team. I didn't plan it, but maybe
Yeah.
I did plan it subconsciously. And I was like, thank God, I love being a
Good.
team.
Good. Okay. But can you see over time, are you developing some things? Because you're still kind of a young married couple. How many years?
We've been living in the same house for about 15 years. So
15.
yeah, that's
Okay.
when we really had
So
to
where
become
do you
a
think you've
team.
grown on this paradigm? Where do you think you've grown?
I've learned to the protectiveness, like
Yeah.
setting boundaries, being honest, that
Yeah.
has come on very, very slowly. It was
Okay.
like I had to be pushed to the extreme to develop that language of honesty and setting my personal boundaries.
Yeah.
And yeah, this, I mean, team. Also just sensible, just the way we manage our home, our schedule, putting the kids to bed, it hasn't been very sensible. So, but we have grown, we have improved because we've seen the consequences of not being sensible. It's horrible, it's chaos. So we feel like, come on, we need to be more sensible.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. Okay. Thank you for sharing, Betty. And
Mm.
Patricia, can you have you any reflections on this in your marriage?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. I have to think more deeply, but for me personally, I think with David, I'm more more nurturing
Okay.
and perhaps also team player,
Okay.
uh, and also perhaps adult. But David is more protective and free. So I have to
Okay.
develop more this aspect of spontaneity and taking care and doing things creative.
Okay.
And yeah, but he's really, really protective. But also, I'm quite good for planning and cleaning and organizing myself. And
Okay.
but teamwork, I think David is more, more, how can I say, deciding by himself. But for me, I need more to do things together. Um, yeah, this kind of thing. So we are quite different, really.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Yeah,
somehow, all together, you can make a whole picture.
yeah,
So one person's
absolutely.
doing the protectiveness, and one person. So
Yeah,
at
yeah,
least you
yeah,
can survive. Because if you're both lacking in sensible, and nobody's shopping, nobody's washing and keeping
absolutely.
etc., then the whole thing
Yeah,
can fall
yeah,
to pieces quite quickly. Or neither of you is creative and playful and things
yeah,
like that. It can get very boring or non-romantic.
yeah.
So at
That's
least,
true.
so if at least one person's trying to do the protective
Yeah,
and one person's trying to do the nurturing, then somehow things can work because there's somebody there to do it.
yeah, that's so true. And sometimes we are the same, it changed really, and you realize like perhaps we have similar childhood, but
Yeah.
but it's interesting for me because I do a lot of babysitting with my grandchildren, you know.
Okay.
So I'm there in the middle so many times I have to help.
Yeah.
And I have been reflecting a lot how I was with my children and the positive thing and not the so positive thing I have been doing, how I can heal that through helping with my grandchildren. And I feel it's very Very, very interesting. All these different aspects to help, children to grow up so they can become more free and harmonious when they are adult and be able to really build good families. I really feel it's going back to the root and through our own life, really.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Patricia. Anyway, the nice thing about this is it gives us a model which we can start to build on. We can start to say, oh, I can see my protectiveness isn't so good. It keeps on impacting on my family. And you can go off and study, different forms of protectiveness. You can ask AI even today and read books and you can actually say, oh, I want this because I don't want the damage of this in my marriage, So this is a wonderful paradigm to help us. Of course, we can't know God, but we can only understand it like through human beings and what works for us and what doesn't. Yeah.